Salutations and welcome to my Marvel Spider-Man review. After the failure of so many Spider-Man games, Insomniac Games wanted to thwip out their own version of this beloved character. Being true believers themselves, Insomniac knew what their game needed to do the Spider-Man character justice. They pulled all the good from all the old games and even some movies, and implemented it all flawlessly into this new Marvel Spider-Man. I will break this review down into 5 key points: traversal, combat, story, side activity, and overall look.
I got him.
The movement in Marvel Spider-Man is very fluid. When you are Spider-Man, you want to swing between the New York skyscrapers at breakneck speeds and remain in control the entire time. That's exactly what you experience in this game. The webs do attach to buildings. There's no blimp that's always just out of view that follows you around, giving you the ability to swing anywhere. When you swing into the side of a building, it doesn't stop your momentum. You keep your momentum and begin running on the wall. If the wall is to the side and you hit it, you run sideways along the wall, continuing the same direction you were going. You can jump off the wall and go back to swinging anytime. If you hit the wall head on, then you start running straight up the wall. That's a great way to get height quickly. The controls are easy to pick up, but there's more for you to master. While on foot, your normal movement will be a jog. Holding R2 will make you run, and you will automatically parkour over any obstacles. Pressing X will jump. When in the air, pressing and holding R2 will shoot out a web to swing from. Releasing R2 will release that web, while pressing X while holding the web will allow you to jump out of your swing, boosting your momentum. When running sideways along a wall, as you come to the corner of the building, you can hold circle and you will web the corner and whip yourself around to quickly turn the corner. When wall running up the wall, as you reach the top of the building, you can press X to web the ledge and whip yourself over the building to change your upward momentum into forward momentum. An easy way to build momentum in the air is pressing L3, which will send Spider-Man into a dive. You can also press X in the air to web zip forward to gain speed. There is this little circular icon on different points in front of you, and pressing R2 and L2 together will allow you to zip to that point. You can press X as soon as you get to that point to jump off of it and build more speed. All of this together, along with any other small things I may have missed, combine fluidly into amazing traversal. While it may be few and far between, I have seen some issues with the traversal, albeit it's tiny glitches rather than traversal mechanics. As you may have seen if you watch my playthrough videos, Spider-Man has trouble parkouring over rocks in Central Park. There was one moment where I was swinging into the side of a building to go up, but Spider-Man just stopped and wiggled side to side a bit, and then went into his classic upside down pose. Another small issue is randomly you may just lose your momentum when point launching or whipping over a building. Despite these flaws, overall the traversal is the best I've ever seen.
Possible drug deal in progress. Nearest unit approach with caution. Location is in the vicinity of Devil's Shelf.
When Marvel Spider-Man, or Spider-Man PS4 as everyone called it, was first announced and the gameplay was shown a year later, everyone thought the combat was going to be a copy and paste of the Batman Arkham games. That is not the case. While the Arkham games are a clear inspiration for Spider-Man's combat, Insomniac changed it and made it their own. Spider-Man is very acrobatic, and in the comics he created his own fighting style called the Way of the Spider. In that fighting style, Spider-Man uses his acrobatics to his advantage, and he uses a lot of kicks. In the Marvel Spider-Man game, Insomniac implemented that perfectly. The normal on-foot combo is all kicks. You can also launch people into the air and follow them up there and continue hitting them, or jump off of people and go to others and hit them. To get to other people, you need to do a web strike, which can be done from the ground or the air. You don't just automatically leap across a huge distance to hit someone like you do in the Arkham games. In the Arkham games, people take turns hitting you. Not in Spider-Man. Everyone just goes after you. So you need to pay attention to Spider-Man's spider sense and dodge a lot. There are lots of gadgets for you to use while in combat. The web shooters are your first and probably most useful. You rapid fire web balls at enemies to keep them in place for a few seconds. While they are webbed, you can start hitting them or throw them either at another enemy or at a wall. If they hit a wall, then they stick to the wall and they are incapacitated. The web shooters have limited shots but recharge over time, and you can upgrade them to have more shots and recharge faster. The concussive blast is a quick push to throw enemies back. Use it after webbing enemies up to push them into a wall to stick them there. The impact web is a one-shot web that knocks enemies back and sticks them to a wall. The spider drone is a flying spider robot that zaps enemies for a limited time. You can shoot out multiple at once. These are overpowered and very useful when overwhelmed by enemies. The electric web is basically a super taser. It arcs electricity between enemies and stuns them all. The suspension matrix lifts all enemies in its range and holds them in the air. The web bomb explodes, firing webs in all directions, webbing up everyone in range. If you fire a web bomb right as the suspension matrix ends, all the enemies will fall to the ground and the web bomb will web them all to the ground. The web trip mine is a trap you can place from a distance, and when someone passes its laser tripwire, it webs them to the surface the mine is on. This is used more for stealth. Stealth combat is reminiscent of the Arkham games as well. You zip from perch to perch and web enemies when others aren't looking. You can also do a web strike takedown, which launches you at the enemy and you slam their head into the floor. Or you can sneak up behind someone to do a takedown. You can use your spider sense to track enemies, and you can distract people or lure them places with your web shooters. You can wall crawl and ceiling crawl, but you typically won't during these parts. My issue with combat would be when so much is happening at once, all you can do is dodge over and over, but enemies such as brutes close in on you and swing at you so much that even though you are constantly dodging, they will still hit you. I had this glitch happen once, maybe twice, where everyone I was fighting just vanished. One of those times was in one of my playthrough videos. Overall, the combat is challenging and keeps you on your toes, and it is very fun.
Someone's trapped in that car.
The story of Marvel Spider-Man was spectacular. Spoilers ahead if you haven't already watched my playthrough. The characters are relatable and you care about them, especially if you've loved these characters before playing this game. The game opens with a pan across Peter's apartment and you see lots of things that set up how his life is, like jars for collecting money for new things that are all empty. Then you go to Fisk Tower and fight through his henchmen to fight Kingpin himself and finally arrest him. Within the first hour of the game, you meet Dr. Otto Octavius, and you work for him. The two of you are trying to create prosthetic arms that are controlled by thought to help people who lost an arm. If you are a Spider-Man fan, you know that Octavius will become Dr. Octopus. So that part is very predictable. But I think that is the point. We know it's going to happen. But by the time it is happening, we don't want it to. We've grown attached to Otto the way Peter has. We don't want all the good he has been trying to accomplish to take him down and make him insane. Before Otto goes mad, the main villain is Mr. Negative. Martin Lee opened and runs the feast shelters in New York, homeless shelters that do a lot of good for the city. Martin Lee has a demon living in him, Mr. Negative. Mr. Negative has a gang of minions called the Inner Demons, whom he imbues with his negative energy. The demons will be the main foot soldiers that you fight out in the streets. Mr. Negative wants revenge against the man who made him into who he is, but Spider-Man can't allow him to destroy his city. Once Doc Ock goes crazy, he stages this huge breakout from both Rikers and the Raft prisons, releasing hundreds of prisoners and 5 supervillains: Electro, Rhino, Scorpion, Vulture, and Mr. Negative, right after you put him in prison. All of them, together with Doc Ock, make the Sinister Six. The boss fights with them are amazing. You fight Electro and Vulture together. It's high flying and very cinematic and fun. You fight Rhino and Scorpion together. You can make them hit each other, and it's much more grounded of a fight. Then you fight Mr. Negative in a negative energy world where he shows off all his power. Finally, you fight Doc Ock, and it is as emotional as it is cinematic and fun. I would have enjoyed it more if you could fight each member of the Sinister Six separately, then two at a time, then all together, and fight them in all sorts of combinations. They could have spread out the boss fights more as well. The end of the game was boss heavy, while the rest was basically just fighting goons. Overall, the story was gripping, exciting, emotional, cinematic, and fun.
New York! New suit, same old.
There's a lot of stuff to do when not doing the story. There are side missions which can be as good as the story itself, such as the Tombstone missions, where you take down the indestructible drug lord Tombstone, and other missions such as just collecting pigeons for this guy, or fighting a bunch of bad guys to protect people, and others. There are landmarks to take pictures of, from both real-life New York and Marvel's New York. Then there are Peter's old backpacks to collect, which each have something from his past and are pretty interesting. There are Black Cat stakeouts, where you find the little cat statue. Then there's enemy bases scattered throughout the city. Taskmaster challenges, which can be traversal, combat, stealth, or bomb disposal. And there is even more side stuff to do, along with random crimes, which change as the story progresses. The side activities can get somewhat repetitive after a while, but they are still fun the whole time. The city looks gorgeous. All the people and cars in New York City always moving, the buildings reaching towards the sky, the water passing by all around with boats and ferries sailing, the trees, lakes, and monuments of all the parks, the details on Spider-Man's mini suits. Everything in this game looks so beautiful. Speaking of the suits, there are so many suits in this game, dozens, and DLC adds even more. Most of the suits come with a suit power that you can equip while wearing any suit, and they can be very useful. About the map. For some reason, they completely cut off the northern part of Manhattan. But it is the most realistic version of New York I've ever seen in a game, and it is huge regardless of the missing chunk from the top. Those boats I mentioned sailing by have people in them that are the stuff of nightmares. If you zoom in on them, they are very boxy and flat and creepy, as you see here. The parts of the city that you would be seeing normally look great, although I would have loved to see the 9/11 memorial pools. My ratings out of 10. Graphics, 9. Music, 9. Cinematics, 10. Story, 9. Acting, 10. Side content, 8. Controls, 10. Gameplay, 10. This is the best Spider-Man game I've ever played. Everything together makes it such a thrill to play, and I highly recommend you try it out for yourselves. I rate this game an overall 9.5 out of 10. Thank you all for watching. Please hit that like button. And for more reviews and playthroughs, hit that subscribe button so you can always stay up to date. Your verse of the day is Matthew 7:7. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be open to you. Thank you, and have a great day.